That new intro's got me going, and I don't know where Dan is. Are we looking at his shoes? Anyway, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty Theory, a proud member of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast Network. I'm your host, John Bauer. You can find me on Twitter at the Bauer Club, and we are joined by the Brahma Bull over there. Or is that John Cena? I can't tell. But that's Dan Lamagna at FF Coach Dan on Twitter. What's going on, Dan?
I'm pumped from the Super Bowl still, man. I'm wearing the same sneakers that the streaker that went through the field wore, so I figured I'd celebrate that moment and give a playoff thank you to my boy Lenny tonight. You know, it all started with basketball there. He helped wrap up a nice DFS season. A thank you to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and congratulations tonight. My condolences to McCole Hardman. He kind of disappeared on me, but I'm pumped, boys. Let's talk some Dynasty.
Two things. One, I'm not sure, Mitch, do we have a guarantee from Dan that he, in fact, was not the streaker? Like, do we know this for sure?
Sadly, there's been some pictures of the streaker. A little bit younger than Dan.
He's a paisan, I think. So we might be related. I don't know.
And then I was cracking up because, of course, Dan retweeted the picture of him and Lenny, and he's like, "Hey, Lenny, can I get a like or a retweet?" And somebody commented, "I think he's busy, Dan." This is post Super Bowl. Dan is demanding a retweet from Lenny, and, you know, he's celebrating.
John, give me credit. I offered a charity donation with that retweet. I offered.
Of course. I'm sure he was a little bit busy, but we're also joined by Mitch Sorensen. That's at DynoMC on Twitter. What's up, Mitch?
What's going on? Happy MFL rollover day.
Not so happy for commissioners, though, right?
It's a little bit of work, but you get this day over with and it all calms down. MFL made some pretty cool changes, so I'm really happy with that. So it's going to be a good year.
Well, hopefully that all goes off without a hitch. And then tonight is the final installment of the coaching carousel series that we've been doing. New year, new coaches, part 3. It's like, you know, we're not going to get up to 8 or 9 like Rocky Balboa, you know, within that series. But so we're going to stop at 3 here. But new year, new coaches. And Dan, first, before I let you get going on the Jets, this is going to be a Dan Lamagna show pretty much. And we're here for it. But I do want to say, Dan, I want to give you kudos because somebody DM'd me on Twitter and they had, you know, some very nice comments to say about you specifically and the information you gave on the Los Angeles Chargers. So I do want to say kudos to you.
Hey, man, I appreciate that. But, you know, to our listeners, we just make a great team, the 3 of us here, and just compliment each other. You guys know I love the world of coaching, so this is right in my wheelhouse. But looking forward to another show tonight.
All right, well, this is the episode of dysfunction, if you will. We're going over the New York Jets, the Houston Texans, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Dan, start us off. New York Jets, Robert Saleh. I think I actually pronounced that correctly. In the show notes, I put their name and then pronunciation, how I would phonetically say it. So I think I nailed that one. But Dan, what do you got for us? New York Jets, Robert Saleh.
You throw me off. This is like a slow burn for our listeners tonight, starting off with the Jets, Jets. You know, I think for anyone who likes, you know, following coaches, interested in the coaching ranks, even just, you know, maybe a study leaders, this is just a fun practice for Dynasty here, watching these organizations and these leaders in these press conferences. And I've been just having fun dissecting them, getting ready for the Dynasty season, you know, seeing what kind of shifts are going to happen in management here. And as you mentioned, JB, this is kind of the show of dysfunction tonight. Jets, Jaguars, Texans. Oh, there's a lot of dysfunction to get to. Stoked to get to the Texans. But right now, when you look at the Jets, 20 coaches in 61 seasons now. They have one ever Super Bowl with Broadway Joe and 2 winning coaches ever. Can you imagine taking that job knowing only 2 coaches ever in the history of this organization were winners? You know, those Bill Parcells days were nice, but we have went through a tough time since I think Parcells and Al Groh and Weeb Eubank are probably their 3 most successful coaches, and Weeb was still only 71 and 77 career. So
good old Eubank. I had a feeling we were going to touch on him tonight.
We're dropping knowledge bombs tonight, man. And then we just survived the fantasy football community, the Adam Gase saga there, and the Lev Bell saga. It's all past. So I dive into this, and Chris Johnson, chairman, CEO, Man, he sold us a bag of goods on Adam Gase, his last press conference that I watched, and that was very painful to watch. And I think at that time I predicted dysfunction. So I didn't want to listen to too much of him because I'm just not a believer. And if you do listen to him, guys, like if you got a new job and you went into this organization, you'd be like, oh, what am I signing up for? And obviously you're just thrilled to get one of the 32 best jobs in the NFL. So you're going to say, hey, Chris Johnson's awesome, man. But the hope here, I think, for fantasy owners is in GM Joe Douglas from 2019 to present. He had some success with the Eagles prior. He left. The Eagles kind of went downhill, and this team is building through the draft. Coach Robert Saleh, I'm rooting for this guy. I really do hope, I know the players love him. We hear a lot of that. They say he's a great communicator. He opens up that presser, man, with all gas, no break. Like I was getting pumped up. All right, come on, coach. But, that's his motto for this team. All gas, no break, everything we do. I just hope he could survive in the Jets world there. They talked about the reporting structure changing. It doesn't sound like much change. Coach Saleh just talked a lot about good communication. There is a heavy reliance on everybody reporting up chain by chain and being on the same page in this organization. And I'd be very concerned about that. Joe Douglas noted, the integrity and passion that the coach has with the ability to connect, but I don't think the media was buying it. Guys, I loved it when their media says, Coach, what would you say to the perception of the dysfunction? Used my favorite buzzword, dysfunction, of the Jets brass. Is this fair or unfair? And Coach Saleh tried to say that it was unfair and gave some, popular coaching line about perception, but it's going to be tough, man. The final say goes through Coach Douglas. Coach said that, that final say is irrelevant because they're all going to be on the same page. But I remember Parcells in the past saying, hey, if I'm going to shop for the groceries, I want to cook the dinner. And I don't know if Coach Saleh is going to be able to cook the dinner here. So, he's going to invest in his players like his children, he said. I think the players will play hard for him. But him and Joe Douglas really got to get these upcoming draft picks right. I think for fantasy, he did mention belief in Sam Darnold. He says that he's showing, I've seen on film, why he's a number one draft pick, talked about his arm strength, his mobility. So there was a little bit of a, endorsement there in the press conference that could be encouraging. And maybe that's a tip off to what's coming on draft day, unless something shifts behind the walls there in the Jets system. And he also talked about using the Shanahan system. Said Mike Benton's going to be their run game coordinator. I think this is going to be San Francisco 49ers 2.0. So I'll turn it over to you guys. Belief in Sam Darnold, 49ers 2.0. What do you think?
Well, a lot of it comes down to Mike LaFleur, right?
He's the offensive coordinator. Yep. And then he mentioned bringing him in for the Shanahan system.
That's exactly it. So he was the passing game coordinator 2017 to 2020, and then 17 and 18 as well. He was the wide receiver coach. And I went back and, when we go through all these coaches, we look at the success or lack thereof that they've had in the past. And for Mike LaFleur, when he was the wide receiver coach in 2017 and 2018, he was just piecing together a wide receiver core. Marquise Godwin, Kendrick Bourne, those are the guys that they were really relying on. And then, of course, George Kittle on the running back involvement in the passing game. But for fantasy purposes, what we're focused on, it's a great story. Robert Saleh coming over, defensive coordinator in San Fran as well. But for fantasy purposes, we look at the offensive coordinator. This isn't a situation where the head coach takes over. He's calling the plays. He's the one that we're really paying attention to. So it all comes down to Mike LaFleur. And Mitch, like Dan talked about, in the press conferences, they talk about the first round draft pick and Sam Darnold. Mm-hmm. You and I, we were high on that train. We have been fooled before. Are we going to be fooled again here?
Fooled as in if they're going to keep him or not? Because I think
are they going to give him another chance? Are they going to either trade back from that number 2 overall draft pick, or are they going to go with a rookie quarterback? And guys, tonight is not the night that we're going to get into who should be that quarterback.
Yes.
Would they take a quarterback?
Yes. So when you look at the Shanahan system, it just works. I mean, you look at Minnesota, very good. Tennessee, San Francisco, of course, Atlanta when he was there. So the Shanahan system works. And if you look at those quarterbacks in those systems, Sam Darnold kind of fits. You know what I mean? When you just take a step back on what he's done previous in the year, but when you look at his talent, you're like, kind of a lot like Jimmy Garoppolo, the quarterback that LaFleur is just coming from. And so when I look at that, I'm just thinking in the back of my head, dude, if they could take an offensive tackle there, if they take Slater, or if they take, I can never remember the tackle out of Oregon.
Purnell?
Sowell. Yeah, Soul. Yeah. So
and really quick, and you've said, because you pay a lot of attention to Daniel Jeremiah and the NFL folks, and you have said that maybe the perception of Soul out there in Oregon is we perceive him as a better tackle in the fantasy community than maybe the actual NFL does.
Yeah, I think a lot of people haven't caught up because there's Slater, who everyone's kind of calling the best tackle, but he's a senior to where you get like the little bit of that age discount with the other guy. But I actually think there's a decent.
I like how you're just calling him the other guy,
because I don't know if you say Sowell or Swell, to be honest with you.
I think it's Soul, but again, I say
because
Toll.
It's Sewell.
Toll, Soul. It's all
exactly
there.
So excuse us, because we're great with names, makes us look really professional. But I mean, talk about those two. It makes sense when you look at this team. You look how Shanahan's system. You want a good offensive line. They don't need to draft a good running back. They just need to fix that offensive line.
And just like you said with Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco, and then you pointed to Shanahan in Atlanta, it was that not to say Sam Darnold can't run, because he had that fantastic 60-yard touchdown in that one night game there in 2020. But in Atlanta, it was Matt Ryan, right? So it's kind of those old school type quarterbacks that are more of a pocket passer that have really excelled in these situations under the Shanahan regime. And as I've done with these other coaches and OCs in the past on these other two episodes, I like to run down the historical target shares for the positions. So last 2 years in New York, and this was under Adam Gase, 57% and 50% pass rate, okay? 11 and 12% tight end target share. We know over the last 2 years, everybody was screaming, Chris Herndon is my breakout. Chris Herndon is my breakout. Not quite. And then a 20 and 15% running back target share. Now we transition to the Kyle Shanahan system. 60, 56, that one outlier year, 49%, and then 57% pass rate, 27, 22, 22, and 24 running back target share. Those were percentages. I probably should have said that. And then a 17, 28, 27, and 24% tight end target share. So a lot of numbers, but basically in Kyle Shanahan's system, we're looking at running back and tight end targets, whereas in Adam Gase, I don't know what the heck he was looking at, but it wasn't going to the tight ends. It wasn't going to the running backs. It was all Jamison Crowder.
So real quick, he has George Kittle. So we have to account for that, because when you look at other places, you look in Minnesota, you look in Tennessee, right? They had Jonnu Smith. They didn't use Jonnu Smith like they used George Kittle in San Francisco, because of course they don't, right? And so in Atlanta, I'm trying to think of what tight end they had then, but I can't remember who it was. So I don't think they were that good at fantasy when Shanahan was there, because it was still the Julio show.
Yeah, before Hooper, I mean, it was all funneled through Julio and just the wide receiver core.
And so that's my worry. Is this a Patriots situation to where everyone goes, the Patriots love tight ends? They love Gronk and they loved Aaron Hernandez when he was there. But besides that, they haven't used anybody. I just worry that that's kind of the case. And it's something we're going to see in Philadelphia too, I think.
It's a really good point that you brought up. And I don't expect the tight end target share to double essentially, and then some. But I do think we're going to see an uptick. So I do think there is that benefit in that, in Chris Herndon's favor. Is he going to be the guy everybody wants him to be? And they've wanted him to be since his rookie year where he really made that splash? Possibly not. But I do think we see an uptick. So maybe 16, 17, 18% target share for the tight ends. And Mitch, when you and I really start digging into our projections, there were very few situations, but this is going to be one of them where you and I are like, I don't know if we agree here. But
yep.
Dan, based on that information, I know numbers for Dan, he could throw them out the window. He's that film guy. He's that tape guy. What does he see on Sundays? What do you think we can expect, whether it's Sam Darnold, Chris Herndon, the wide receiver core? Obviously, we're not quite sure what's going to happen at running back. where do you think we could possibly see an uptick in fantasy production with Robert Salah, Mike LaFleur, the new regime here?
You set that up very good, JB. I got to give you credit, because for our listeners, what you don't see is the notes that JB puts together for the show, and he put some very fancy numbers tonight. And I think I glanced and said, heck with the numbers. I know what my eyes showed me, but he really did put together some nice statistics on these guys tonight. But from the film, in the last few games when the Jets started to play good, and yes, my sickness, I even watched Jets football, for DFS purposes too. But Chris Herndon did come alive a little bit when Sam Darnold got back in there and they were playing good. Now, is he going to be the Chris Herndon we ever hoped for? Probably not. But could he become relevant again and a part of an offense that's utilized under Coach Saleh? I could definitely see that happen when Coach LaFleur in that San Francisco style. Rashad Perryman, when Flacco was the quarterback and it was healthy, and the problem with Perryman is he wasn't healthy most of the season. But when he was, in a small sample size, and it's kind of the case the last few years with Perryman, he's like there's like a stigma about him. Like when he's healthy and gets rolling, you're like, wow, like this guy looks like a number one draft pick he once was. Like he started to really come out of his shell with Tampa Bay, and then this year with the Jets in limited action. So there's a little bit of hope there. Denzel Mims, he didn't quite excite us like we hoped, but maybe in year 2 he could show a little bit more flashes, also stay healthy himself. And we know Mitch's boy Crowder is the PPR machine, but again, it's kind of another guy that has to stay healthy. They've got 3 starting wide receivers now that none of them were healthy for an entire season. But in this kind of offense, and I think when you're building a team, the receivers are the last thing you really need to build around. I think you guys said, running back, anybody could seem to run in this system. So they're going to have to get some pieces in free agency. They definitely need talent on this roster, but I think you do build it through the O-line, like you said, and you build it through defense, and we got to watch to see what they do in free agency. But dynasty guys on your roster now, I think there's just a little sliver left of hope on Chris Herndon, where I say don't give up yet, because he did show something. Maybe with a functional coaching staff, he could do better.
Dan hit on something right there that kind of went over it really quick. But as far as the running back goes, I don't care who the running back is in this system. It could be Frank Gore. It could be Todd Gurley. It could be a rookie. It could be an undrafted free agent that I've never heard of. I'm going to want that running back. Like, I don't care who it is at this point. Whoever is that starting running back that we know in July, I want that guy.
And that's going to be the challenge, Mitch, because they're probably going to bring in a few guys. And just like it was with the Niners last year and in recent years, we got to figure out who that guy or guys are going to be.
If it's Chris Carson, is he a 4th-round pick this year?
In
super flex drafts.
In Dynasty or in
Dynasty? Yep.
No, I don't think so.
Because that puts him right above Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, there's no way. And I think a lot of them, and tell you why, it's going to be the, Le'Veon Bell burned me in 2020.
Oh, yeah,
I want to go in between your thoughts there. I agree, JB, like 4th round, no. I think Packer Nation there saying 4th, no way. You're not going to take him in Dynasty ahead of Gibson. But Mitch brings up a good point. If this team invests in him and say he's going to be the guy, he's going to be on your draft board around then. You're going to look at him and you're going to pass him up for the Gibson, and then maybe 5th round, 6th round. Yeah. He's going to be a good pick that people are going to want to have. Again, if the team's investing in him, he gets a few-year contract. The guy's a beast. We love him. He just needs the opportunity to stay healthy.
The issue with this is, and we've hit on this a lot on the Patreon on our Sunday brunches, and you guys never corrected me. I keep saying patreon.com/Dynasty Theory. It's /.
Oh.
It's /. So today I'm literally looking at him again.
Today we will take you to the correct site, ladies and gentlemen.
When it comes to technology and even a website name, a domain name, a URL, am I using these terms correctly? But I'm butchering it. But no, so here's my thing, and we've talked about this countless times with roster construction and startups. At that point, assuming no trades have been made, that's right around the time I'm looking to hammer home wide receiver. So
true too.
5th, 6th, 7th round?
5th, 6th, yeah. But if Chris Carson is there as the running back for the Jets, I'm taking Chris Carson over all of those wide receivers in the 5th round.
I'd have to see that draft board, because we've seen players like Mike Evans slip. I'm not taking Chris Carson over Mike Evans.
It could depend how you're constructing your roster too. I mean, who you pick
We all
1
know
through
I
4
build
is
my
gonna
running
matter.
backs a little bit differently than everybody else does. So that's just a different
guys in the chat.
team building.
We're not. We just hit 20 minutes, and the glasses are almost ready to come off. That's how this show is going. It's like in Happy Gilmore when he holds back from tossing the golf club. I held back.
See, I thought bringing up Chris Carson would fix that because I also have James Conner written down, and I knew like the glasses would have been like into the wall at that point.
No, I love James Conner. I do. Just I even if you say let's say that you have Chris Carson, because I think he's a better example. If you say Chris Carson, he gets signed to a 3-year deal in New York. They don't draft anybody. He's their guy. I don't think, even if you have him at running back 20, you don't have to take him there in startups. I truly don't think you have to take him there.
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll timestamp this. We'll come back to it.
You get that perfect running scheme, and if they get their O-line where it needs to be, and they made some steps last year, and if they invest again in the first round, and you get a Carson or a Connor, I think to what Raheem Mostert did when he was healthy this year, man, he was ripping big runs. Like he looked beast mode, like he could help you win a league. Now he couldn't stay healthy.
Are we comparing the Jets offensive line to the 49ers right now?
We will if they draft an offensive tackle at 2.
They could be taking steps in that right direction. And
That's
in that
what
system,
we're prefacing this on.
Shanahan systems always seem to flourish with the running backs.
I'm going to like their running back, yes. But to say 4th round in a super flex startup, I don't know.
Round. Fifth, 6th. We didn't say
right.
4th.
I was wrong on 4th. 5th. I'm more on 5th.
I was like, wait a minute. I know I heard 4th. Okay.
No,
so
I never said that.
Did you guys think we were going to spend 22 minutes talking about the Jets and then hypothetical situations with which running back might land there?
I did, but we have Houston next, and it's not going to take 20 minutes there.
Last thing.
You think?
Mitch, no, this is the last thing, I promise. Mitch, today, February 9th, 2021, do you believe, assign a percentage, a probability that the Jets do in fact take a quarterback at 2? Because I've been wavering a little.
40%.
All right. Dan?
I'll say 50%. And I'll get into that a little more when we get to Jacksonville.
I mean, if they stay at 2, they have to take a quarterback, right?
No.
I'll go 71.4% chance they take a quarterback. And I think they're going to make the wrong choice and go with Zach Wilson. I do. I think.
Oh, stop it with the wrong choice with Zach Wilson. He's the right choice, JB.
All right. Well, it's my job to keep this show moving. We're on to the Houston Texans. Mr. David Colley. David, who? David Colley. And Dan, I want to start with you because Mitch's show notes right here, it says, let's move on to the Jaguars. All right.
It says, good luck, Dan.
All right, Dan, what do you got for us?
I am super intrigued about the Houston Texans. I was going into our show notes here. This was out of the 3 teams, the one I was looking forward to the most. And starting with the dysfunction notes, this makes 5 coaches in 19 seasons. No Super Bowls. My notes say no plan. They haven't had a plan in their 19 seasons. They've had, a couple of cups of tea where they had some success, but they always find a way to regress. We went through Dom Capers, Coach Kubiak, Wade Phillips' time. Lord knows we just survived another error with Bob there and Bill O'Brien. They've traded draft capital. They've paid big money to kickers. They've had bad trades. They've had Bill O'Brien's comments in the media, and they've had no protection for their franchise quarterback and the O-line historically. And then now all this going on with Watson and J.J. Watt not even wanting to play there. You have Sports Illustrated's, right up on Jack Easterby, and the controversy there is this rise from intern to team chaplain to VP of team development with a lot of power, who is interim GM. And it's very interesting in Houston. So I start off this press conference with Cal McNair, guys, their chairman and CEO, and it was an episode of The Twilight Zone. Must-see TV. Guys, we'll go watch the press conference, our listeners, if you haven't already. He starts off talking about an organization committed to excellence on the field, built with integrity and character and a winning mentality. And his statement is fans must trust that we are right. Now, you tell me how these fans could possibly trust that he's right, but he said that with some conviction there. He said he understands Watson felt left out, and he looks forward to hearing back from Deshaun after his vacation. Now, you telling me your relationship is that bad where you can't pick up the phone and send a text during a vacation, have a little bit of communication? Talked about consulting with others during.
Wait, really quick, Mitch. That sounds like whenever Dan's on vacation, I try to get a hold of him. Every time, new number. Who dis?
Vacation. That's daily.
Yeah, Dan's life is a vacation. We know that.
It is worse in Houston, gentlemen. It is worse in Houston. His exact words, Cal McNair, was my decision process. My decision process, not Mike. Let's forget about the lack of communication with McNair, the new management, coaching. My decision. Then he had a tear in his eye when his new GM, Nick Caserio, spoke there from New England. The writer questioned him on how he preaches excellence after all the dysfunction. Guys, this is my lucky day. 2 press conferences, 2 writers are quoting dysfunction. And what does he do? He recalls an ice bucket challenge with this writer that doesn't start out about not offended by the dysfunction, not sticking up for his franchise. He's like, John, do you remember when we did that ice bucket challenge together? Great memories. I couldn't believe I was watching this. But you know what? He says, we're not far apart from 2019. Our vision is of building a wall. I thought Donald Trump was up there speaking next. No, he says it's going to be brick by brick, day by day. And then he just said, he talked about Jack Easterby. The writer hammered him on that too. Again, you're talking excellence. What's with this guy here? And he says he's gifted in many areas, such as Nick is doing. No substance to his answer whatsoever. So that is the leadership of the Houston Texans franchise. You see why Deshaun and JJ are frustrated. Then GM comes up, Nick Caserio. Man, let me tell you guys, this is his team right now. He is running it, and he is trying to cover up for this dysfunctional owner, in my opinion. He thanked others, his family, shared his plan about being selfless, and then it just flatlined. There was no substance to his press conference ever. He did say that football decisions are mine. He did say with the head coach, the relationship he mentioned being strong with Easterby, and who serves a lot of people. So that's what team chaplains do, not management. And then he abruptly cut off Cal McNair when asked the question and just kind of took control of the press conference. Then the pep rally started, and we have a new head coach in David Culley. This guy will get you fired up. It's another head coach that I'm kind of rooting for. I'm a little worried he went into a Jet situation there. He was an assistant with Kansas City and the Ravens. Been around many great coaches. Parcells recruiting Vanderbilt. Told some good stories. Been with Andy Reid, Sean McDermott. He's gotten a ringing endorsement from John Harbaugh, Jimmy Johnson. And it was really a respectful guy. I really did enjoy his press conference. He talked about focusing on with control one day at a time, being the best versions of himself with the GM there. Study the common denominator of successful head coaches. And mentioned he took this job because of Deshaun Watson. So there was some conviction there that this is our guy and they want him. Is it speak so they could get more for him, or they're trying to fix what's broke? I mean, he's probably praying he gets Deshaun Watson, because if he doesn't get Deshaun Watson, I think he's in for a long haul as head coach. And I feel bad for him because he is really excited to be there. His press conference was all jargon, no substance. I had to go watch a personal one-on-one interview with him to try to get some feel for what they were going to run. And all he said was tough, flexible, aggressive in all 3 phases of the game. Again, no substance really to what him and his staff is going to do. So, guys, you tell me what's going on in Houston there. All I got was dysfunction, lip service, not too much substance. A pretty cool head coach that could motivate that team, but I don't know if he has the support he needs.
Mitch, this threw both of us off. He was hired, I believe, right after we finished up an episode of Fantasy Football Confidential.
Yes.
And you and we talked with Troy and Linda, and I have some thoughts on it. I shared it with Troy and Linda as well. But this kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah. I've paid attention to the NFL my whole life. I've never heard of David Culley before. Like, I might have heard his name in passing, but it definitely didn't resonate with me when I heard that they hired him.
And Dan, you ran through that list: Harbaugh, McDermott, Reid, the glowing endorsements. But let's look at that really quick. He was the Ravens wide receiver coach and passing game coordinator in 2019 and 2020. And we've made this joke before, and I'm going to make it again. I did not know the Ravens even had a passing game coordinator. They throw the ball 4 times a game. So what was David Culley actually responsible for? Hollywood Browns?
He was also Josh Allen's quarterback coach when Josh Allen wasn't a good quarterback. So
I'm getting there.
Sorry.
No, so 2017 and 2018, the Buffalo quarterback coach. Everybody knows how I feel about Josh Allen. I love the player that is Josh Allen. As a quarterback, he was freaking horrendous. He was horrendous. And this isn't me saying, like I wasn't in on him from the start, because I was, but he was a terrible actual quarterback with David Culley as the quarterback coach. Okay, maybe it got better with Kansas City. He was the wide receiver coach 2013 and 2016. They had a season where a wide receiver didn't have a touchdown. How is that possible? So I know this guy's been around. And Dan, you have all of his historical information. You have his social security number. You have everything about this guy. But even though the names that you mentioned, they are the top coaches in the NFL, that is not a glowing endorsement when you look at the historical numbers associated with David Culley.
Yeah, I'm worried. We go back to previous episodes, especially we broke down the Chargers. You mentioned that at the beginning of the show, and that organization gave us a lot of insight to the direction they were going, the process behind it. You could believe it in the Los Angeles Chargers. When I listened to David Culley, again, he was a well-spoken guy. Like, I could see on a short-term basis, like, if you were in the same room with this guy, you'd love him. It kind of reminds me of like a Mike Singletary a little bit when he coached with the Niners. When he first started coaching in the NFL, we're like, man, he was awesome as a player. You listen to him, he'll pump you up. He's a football guy. This is a football guy here. He talked about liking boxing and had some great stories. Like, he captured my attention with his stories. But when it comes down to Sundays and you've got to call games and you got to manage those games, that's when you can get in trouble really fast. And if he can't manage football games, it's going to be a sinking ship, because I don't have faith in the front office.
Now, I want your opinions. I don't want to get into this too much, but whenever this hire took place, and it was right after Fantasy Football Confidential, and I said, Troy, I want your opinion. And, we always talk very openly, which is fantastic about Fantasy Football Confidential, shameless plug. But I said, do you think there was a chance David Culley was the guy that they brought in because he's a black coach and it is a last-ditch effort to keep Deshaun Watson? And there wasn't much disagreement there. And I'm not saying that's the only reason he was brought in, but when you had all these other top candidates and they didn't, they didn't even take in, I know obviously Eric Bieniemy, another black coordinator, which everybody's familiar.
Why don't you interview him, JB? That's why I would say it's not because this was a minority hire. Because why on earth don't you interview or wait to interview Eric Bieniemy? And JB, I'm going to get on a little, not a tangent, but I think the reason is this coach is a good speaker, and I think he just snowed him. I think all those names he threw in the interview that he name dropped, I'm telling you, listen to his press conference. I would love to sit and talk with him for a day. Like, I think he's got leadership qualities, but I don't know if he's a football guy. Like, if
you sit down and talk with him, don't let him listen to this episode, because he might not want to talk to you after.
Yeah, he might not. But you know what? He would, because he said in the press conference he doesn't listen to the naysayers. Doesn't listen to him. He only listens to in the house and within the NFL. So,
okay. So going back to this Deshaun Watson thing, right? So he signed the contract last year. We know he did that. He signed the extension. So we obviously liked the team at that point. But when you look at this franchise, Bob McNair, so Cal McNair's dad, he was the one during the CBA lockout. He was the one that actually said that we can't let the prisoners run the asylum. And then he came back and apologized for it after. And then 2 years down the road, he says, no, I never should have apologized for it because I meant with what I said. And so you have to wonder if Deshaun Watson is seeing all of this with the franchise. And I've always been the one being like, you know what? They're not going to trade him. And I actually think that they might not trade him just to try to prove a point, from how that franchise views things. But I actually think it's a really, really close parallel to Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer went through the exact same thing with the Bengals. He said he'll retire. The Bengals pretty much played a season without him. And then he got shipped off to the Oakland Raiders after that. So I actually think it could easily happen to where we don't see Deshaun Watson on the field this year because he has enough money. And it's not just contract money. He has all of the endorsement money that's going to keep coming in. So it's not like, oh, he earned this much playing on the field. Doesn't matter because he probably makes double that off the field in marketing.
Now you have me nervous, Mitch. You ruined my night. You're in my head.
It's a war of attrition, essentially. Who's going to cave first? And every single team owner is praying for the sake of leverage that it's not the Texans ownership that caves. It's not upper management that caves. They are praying because once you give these players that glimmer of hope that they are in control, and these owners don't want them to feel that way because you can talk to anybody. It's not the players in control. It's ownership. It's upper management. So you better believe that every team across the NFL is hoping Deshaun Watson comes back and plays because we don't want him to have that type of power.
And this is scary because this could be, if he's got a good head on his shoulders and if what's coming out in the media is true, that he says he will sit out a season, and you bring up the points of his dad in the past and those comments, like it could get bad. It could get really ugly here.
And if he doesn't get traded, I hope he sits out. Mm-hmm. I hope he does.
Yeah, I'm all on the player side with this stuff. Like, I'm never going to be on the owner side with any of this talk.
Especially Deshaun Watson. There's not a bad story about him.
Nope, never has been.
Oh God, I'm going to butcher this story. I know I am, and I'm going to have to look it up afterwards. But it was after his final season. He was at a bar down south, and people saw it was Deshaun Watson. And I don't know if he was in Alabama or Georgia or wherever, but these fans are getting on him, yelling at him, and he gets up, he pays his check and leaves. That not any issue whatsoever. And even in a situation like that, that's the type of person that Deshaun Watson is. And I hope he sits out and says, screw you guys. All right.
See it happening.
So we could go on about this forever, but I'm with you, Mitch. I'm siding with the players certainly on this one. But Tim Kelly, boring old Tim Kelly now, offensive coordinator since 2019. He was the tight end coach before that, 2017 and 2018, like we've done with all these other teams. Under Tim Kelly is the OC. Pass rate 61% in 2020, 55% in 2019, 15 and 16% running back target share, 20% and 18% tight end target share. Assuming Deshaun Watson is there in 2021, and again, we just went on and on and on. So
Okay.
if he's not there, who the heck knows what's going to happen here? But do you think that we can really see any change in this offense? Tim Kelly's still there. It's not like it's a brand new offensive system coming in. Dan?
If they didn't have Deshaun, this is the 2020 Jets all over again. It is going to be a bad uphill season for this team, and morale is going to be shot in that locker room. If they do bring him back, Deshaun Watson can make any coach look good. I mean, he's just a superstar. So does Will Fuller come back? And if he could do what he did again last year and not get suspended at the end, I know he's going to be out week 1. They've got some tools there. Cook showed he could stay healthy for a year.
If Fuller gets re-signed, we don't know.
That's the big question there. And that's another big question, because if you don't have Deshaun and then you lose Fuller, boy, it's really going to get ugly.
Yeah.
And who's going to want to who's going to want to sign a free agent contract with the Houston Texans? This might end up being like Randall Cobb, Surfer Boy Chad Henson, and Brandon
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Maybe Fitzmagic. They're going to need someone positive to spark this team. So there is a lot of questions here. I mean, there's still questions at running back with David Johnson, but with Fuller, with Watson, everybody's fantasy relevant no matter what. We'll see what they do. But I don't know. They've got a lot of work to do with this franchise.
It just goes so far off of the fantasy path
Yeah.
that you really can't give a good analysis without it just being, well, if this happens, this is what could happen. And it's just kind of like, we have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
But Dan?
Well, if I could add one thing, Nick Caserio, the GM, is probably the wild card. They have wanted this guy for the longest time when Bill O'Brien was there. I mean, they were just set, and they finally got him. Now, maybe is there like a hidden genius under the Belichick, regimen that they had a lot of success in that organization for a long time. He didn't give me anything to make me feel good about it in the press conference, but
The odds aren't in his favor as far as the Belichick coaching GM tree goes.
That's coming from a Matt Patricia fan over there.
Yeah, big fan.
Last thing I want to say about the Texans, and again, Mitch, you're like, oh, this is going to be, are we going to even be able to talk about the Texans for 2 minutes? 20 minutes here.
There's lots of last things, I guess.
No, but this is the last thing. Hey, I stuck to that with the Jets. But last thing for the Texans, quarterback coach coming over in a lateral move, which is interesting because you don't see it often. Pep Hamilton. And what a name. Pep Hamilton. I might name my second son Pep Hamilton Bauer. I don't know. It has a good ring to it. But quarterback coach in Los Angeles Chargers in 2020, we saw, and Mitch, you talk about this all the time, right? Well, Justin Herbert was supposed to be terrible. What happened? Pep Hamilton, maybe he had something to do with Justin Herbert really developing and showing off his talents more than most people expected.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. But the problem is, what quarterback is he going to help? That's what I worry about. What if it's Ryan Mallett? Who are they going to bring in? Because I'm honestly worried that I think Deshaun Watson is loved by the players around the league. Everything we hear is all the players love him. Yep. So like Dan said, what free agent is going to want to come? I'm sure free agents are going to be willing to go because they want a job, right? But which ones are going to do it when they know Deshaun Watson just flat out won't play for this team, and then you're going to go and be quarterback for the Texans? That really worries me.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks. But again, maybe with these new coaches coming in, and I don't know, but again, it goes so much deeper than just the coaching staff.
When Deshaun Watson, J.J. Watt, and DeAndre Hopkins are throwing you under the bus, man, that brotherhood of players in the NFL, they're not coming.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So as soon as Urban Meyer was hired as the head coach, I put out Mitch, Mitch, in the middle of the day, in the middle of the shop, or the office setting, there's machines going off in the background. I'm like, Mitch, you gotta go on mute because all I hear is but we put together a breaking news pod about Urban Meyer becoming the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Dan, I know you want to give your recap of the press conferences and go through your history of dysfunction here, so I'm going to let you start it off.
I enjoy this one, guys. This one's taken me out of the dysfunction world, and I was pleasantly, I don't want to say surprised, but Houston, there was so much to talk to because it was just full of dysfunction. I just had fun with that one. But the Jacksonville Jaguars, again, they were high on the dysfunction list going into last year. This will be their 7th coach in 26 seasons, obviously 0 Super Bowls. They've only had one season better than 6-10. So there's a lot of reasons to say, hey, why are they not getting this right? Shad Khan, historically, there's been some drama with, I think, his son in the media there saying some things. He has not spent money wisely in the past. They've traded their top picks. You get guys like Jalen Ramsey on your roster. All these draft picks that they've had throughout the years, they just keep trading them. So it's like you keep starting over. But I truly believe his intentions were good, and he just hasn't had the right chemistry in that organization. He thought he had it. I think he really wanted to, with Tom Coughlin as GM and Doug Marrone as head coach. And, Tom Coughlin's had a great career. No disrespect to Coach Coughlin. He's a military guy. He bleeds football, but I just think the time passed. I don't think that was the role for him. I think he was, a hard-nosed head coach that had his years. And Shad Khan even mentioned in the press conference, he goes, we got away from the communication somehow. Like, I think he's still trying to figure out in his mind, like, why did this not work? And as he sat from his dining room background there in the press conference, Urban was separate at Jacksonville headquarters. It was awesome. I mean, they were all well-spoken. Urban Meyer, I've had the opportunity when I was coaching college football to listen to him speak at some of those Nike Coach of the Year clinics. Man, he captivates a room, and he gives you something as a coach that you take in your coaching career. And I know he's going to captivate that locker room and that organization. There's a buzz in Jacksonville that they talked about at the press conference. He's really studied this. Some of the interesting quotes I got from the conference. I mean, he's close friends with Jimmy Johnson, my Cowboys Hall of Fame coach from his time at Fox, who's been a resource for him. He advised them. A lot of people are going to say, hey, what, college to pro, making that jump. There's been so many that hasn't made it. And Coach Johnson says that there's a perception out there that you have to be different. And he says college players are pro players. They want to win. That's the bottom line. They want to win. And Urban Meyer is out of that Jimmy Johnson mold, guys. I mean, he is going to hold those guys accountable, and he made it known in that press conference. He's going to give them the best of everything, the best coaching. He used the term great coaches. We talked about that in some of our previous Dynasty Theory episodes where you could just tell the experience and the expectations and the bar. His bar is way up here versus these other coaches we just talked about. He did say the number 1 draft pick is huge in his decision. He would not jump into position if he knew he could not win sooner than later. It's going
to be crazy seeing Zach Wilson in a Jacksonville Jaguars uniform.
Now I'm warming up to that. All right. I'm not saying it's going to be Zach Wilson. It is going to be Trevor Lawrence. I thoroughly believe that. But before I get back to the quarterbacks, he talked about being very demanding of everyone. Talked about watching his health closely. He's had some health concerns in the past. But he interviewed NFL players last year as part of his research to why organizations win. Went out there and asked these NFL guys. We saw him in the booth in a Washington game. He said he spent a year ago with Shad Khan at the Super Bowl, spent a lot of time, has a strong relationship there. And part of his game is just adapting to different players. This guy he didn't give any canned answers up there. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He told it like it is. And I'm not here just saying I'm on the Urban Meyer bandwagon because there's been some mistakes in his career. He hasn't handled everything the way it should. And I think he acknowledges that. He said, I made some mistakes in my career. But I think overall, his body of work, he has been a winner. Now, from a dynasty fantasy football point where I started taking things away, he said this team is going to be the fastest team on the field. And he wasn't talking about 4.340 fast. He said they are going to play fast. So now I'm starting to think about a good sign of the offense and the snaps they're going to get, kind of like an Arizona Cardinals, getting a lot of snaps running a fast-paced team. And he says it won't be too complicated to slow players down or he will intervene. I know Mitch has got some good takes on the offensive coordinator. Like Urban's going to have his hands on everything here. Then he said he was going to build it around the players. And he mentioned 2 guys. He goes, if you have a Dwayne Haskins, now we know Dwayne Haskins' NFL version didn't pan out. But in college, he goes, you have a Dwayne Haskins, you throw the ball 50 times a game. He goes, if I have a Zeke, we're going to run the heck out of the ball. So who they draft and who they pick as free agents, building around that roster, they're going to tell us what they're going to do next year. He is going to build it around that team, and he's got a history of that. Then they asked him about the quarterbacks. Have you studied this quarterback class? What's your thoughts on about it? He mentioned right out of the gate, Trevor, Josh, and Zach. He goes, I have studied these thoroughly. Not like in previous press conferences where they haven't even looked at film yet and have no clue and haven't done anything. He goes, I have extensively studied this, and there are some elite, his words were elite quarterbacks in this class. So if I'm a dynasty owner right now, if you believe in Urban Meyer and his record, I'm thinking, okay, elite quarterbacks, more than one, and he just named Trevor, Josh, and Zach without even thinking about quarterbacks. So that kind of moved all of those 3 guys right up there.
Time out because I let it pass the first time. I can't do it a second. Who's
Zach
Josh? Who's Josh?
Fields? Did I say that right? Do I got it?
Justin.
Sorry, Justin. Yeah, my bad. I'm all amped here. I got Josh in my head.
If you're not watching on YouTube, you're not watching live. Dan actually was just dancing.
I'm so excited because Zach Wilson, he mentioned him like in the same sentence. No hesitation. Elite quarterbacks, JB. The ammo's building up for me, man. But
and he's saying Justin's third cousin, Josh, is an elite quarterback.
Hey, I digress there, but last thing I'll say about him is he said the players going to be pushed, given the best. He says they're going to love and respect the logo. He goes, this sounds high school, but if they don't, it's his job to get rid of them. And in that same mold of Jimmy Johnson, I'm telling you, players respond to this, and there's going to be fear in that locker room. If they don't bust their tail, they're gone. He will cut them to make an example out of them. So I think the Jaguars are trending in the right direction here.
Let me ask, and this is to Mitch, because this is a concern of Mitch's. And
Yes.
Rob in the chat, he just mentioned this. But does he have commitment issues? I would be scared that he retires after 2 seasons. Mitch, we talked about this in the Breaking News podcast, and I was a little bit more optimistic than you might be.
Yeah, so I'm a Utah Utes fan, so I know Urban Meyer going back to the 2000s, right? So he was the coach at Bowling Green, bailed from there as soon as he could. He was the coach for the Utes when they weren't a Power 5 school then, they were in the Mountain West. And as soon as he could, he bailed from them, went to Florida. What happened as soon as the Florida times got rough? Oh, he has health issues, so he's out. Then he goes to Ohio State. What happens when Ohio State starts having issues? He has health issues and he has to go out. He is a front runner. And I'm saying that, and he said it in his press conference. He would not take a job unless he thought he could win. I mean, flat out. But So I say those bad things about him, right? But he is one of the greatest college coaches in history. I mean, this isn't just someone coming up through the ranks who coached at Oklahoma for 4 years and then we all of a sudden want him, right? He is a great head coach. He is a great speaker. He is everything you kind of want a coach to be. So the question is going to be is, can he turn this team around fast enough so they're in playoff contention each year? Because I don't think for 1 minute, if they go 2-14 this, or I guess 2-15 next year, 3-14 the next year, I don't see him being there 2 years after that. But if he could turn it around, maybe go 6-11 next year, playoff contention, then I could see him staying. But I definitely think the commitment issue is something to worry about with him.
I'll say this, Mitch. There's two thoughts that I would go with that. One, if he does have success early, and he could change the culture of this organization, and even if he only stays for 3, 4, 5 years, he could get them in the track they need. And I think this owner could learn from him and do that. It's something Dallas didn't do. Bill Parcells said when he left, he thought he changed the culture of the team. And unfortunately, Jerry just lost that culture. Everything Bill Parcells brought back in Dallas, the ownership lost. And when I was at one of those Nike Coach in the Year clinics, there was a special teams coordinator, Danny Smith, who I think is with your Steelers now, JB, if I'm not mistaken, as their special teams coordinator. As a young coach, I asked him, I go, what do you think is harder, coaching in college or coaching in the NFL when you're looking at having like a family lifestyle? And he said college. And Urban Meyer in that press conference says, it's definitely not going to be college anymore for me. I've studied the NFL for a long time, especially in the last 6 months, because you don't have that recruiting trail. You're not recruiting all year round. You're not dealing with the academics. Not that NFL is 100-hour work weeks. I mean, it's intense, but there's a little bit ease of family. And his kids are all older, he mentioned, too, now. So he's all in.
Dan, you made the comment about Urban Meyer playing to the strengths of his teams. And that's going to be a big thing that people are going to talk about ad nauseum throughout this offseason. Well, how is his offense going to affect the passing game? How is it going to impact James Robinson? And what we have seen, and this is what how's it going to impact DJ Shark? Yes. But what we talked about in the breaking news podcast immediately after Urban Meyer being named the head coach was what he has done historically. If he has a pocket passer, he is going to use that pocket passer and their strengths. If he has a mobile quarterback, a Tim Tebow, right? Oh my God,
Alex Smith.
Even Alex Smith from Ohio State, Braxton Miller. Holy cow. Just another name slip. There we go. But you have those mobile quarterbacks. He's going to use that to their advantage and their strength. So in terms of how is this going to impact the offense, anybody that is out there saying, well, I'm fairly certain this is how it's going to be, BS. Because we're all speculating at this point.
My speculation is James Robinson is going to be fine. That's
it doesn't
my
matter
speculation.
Who came in. Mitch is going to say James Robinson's going to be fine. And if they don't take another running back, I absolutely think he is.
So here's a question for you. What do you do with the tight ends? In my opinion, I don't care who the tight end is there. I don't know of a tight end that has ever been used by Urban Meyer. And I hate to go back because Darren Bevel, he used TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson is like a top 5 tight end in the league right now. So it's kind of, what do you do with it?
But when you look at Bevel and the time he spent in Seattle, even Minnesota, and even so, let's look back over the last 8 years. He only had under a 20% tight end target share once.
That's good to know.
Only once. So a lot of people, well, don't forget about Josh Oliver down there. And yeah, there, he was taken in the 3rd round, I believe.
James O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah. Or Tyler Eifert, if he comes back. But even last year, Tyler Eifert, he was
fine. Yeah.
But I do think there is going to be some opportunity. What if a Hunter Henry goes to Jacksonville?
It's a good point. It's a very good point.
That's a fantastic spot. So I'm not writing off a Bevel-led offense when we look at a tight end. And Ben in the chat says Florida had Hernandez, and he did.
He did. Yeah. 10
but again,
years.
Two Hernandez references in one show. Holy cow!
I know, and of course, he was speaking strictly to on the field. I don't think we have to specify.
I concede, John. You're right about this tight end thing. I didn't realize Bevel had that much tight end usage the whole time.
Yeah, and then running back target share last 8 seasons, every season between 15 and 19%. So is that a hit for James Robinson, who was so used to seeing those targets last year? Maybe a little bit, but Mitch is giving me that face if you're not watching on YouTube. But there is going to be a bigger opportunity and more touchdown upside. So it's that little bit of a trade-off. So if James Robinson is their guy, I'm not worried about him at all, just like Mitch said, but I'm a little bit more bullish there on the tight ends. And then it's a coin flip, when it comes to the way Bevel operates his offense in terms of passing it and running the ball. That was a big worry when he went to Detroit. Oh, everybody's writing off Kenny Golladay. So many articles out there, so many Twitter threads, so many debates and discussions and arguments. At that time, I might have been a little argumentative. I know that's hard to believe these days.
No.
But, I think that's something that we just don't know. But assuming that Jacksonville Jaguars defense is not good, I'm going to say they're going to throw the ball.
Yeah, they're going to build it around Trevor Lawrence. But, hey, in his rookie season, you don't want to throw the kid out to the wolves too much. I think they will lean on James Robinson a little bit, take some pressure off. Shark, I think he knows he has a number 1 receiver. He knows he has a number 2 receiver in LaVisca. I think it's building those complementary pieces of the offense, but they got to get the line right on both sides. We saw it in the Super Bowl. You have the offensive line and the defensive line, and that I think he's smart enough to build his team that way. And, hey, if they improve in the trenches, that only helps the offense.
Here's what we're going to do. Allen Robinson, he's coming back to Jacksonville. Hunter Henry, he's going to Jacksonville. He's going to solidify that tight end situation. James Robinson at running back, Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. Every other draft pick, offensive line. You can throw a defensive lineman in there if you want, but I don't want to see that defense improve at all. I want it to be fast-paced, like Dan said, and I want them to have to put up 50 points to win.
Urban might not agree with you, JB, but the fantasy community, I'm sure, does.
That's what I want. That is what I'm going to get. All right, guys. Again, another fantastic show, but now it's time for Dan's favorite part, but I spruced it up a little bit. Ready?
Final thoughts.
Again, if you're not watching on YouTube, I have a new graphic with Dan and Mitch's little Bitmojis. Dan has his cowboy gear on, giving a little wave. Mitch, the little shrug. But final thoughts, Dan, what do you have for our listeners here? 105 episodes in.
We've 105. Wow, we got to work on that whole Bitmoji picture introduction there. I think I saw it for a tenth of a second there. I'm not quite sure what happened live, but it was cool. JB's been the graphic man behind the scenes here. Final thoughts tonight, man. Hey, I kind of like sigh of relief. The DFS season has concluded. I now pronounce my loyalty to Mitch and John and our Dynasty fans here as my Dynasty grind officially goes into overdrive now. Time to dive into the rankings. I've had fun going through these coaches. You guys got us kickstarted on the college draft. So let's go, boys. It's Dynasty time.
And now we are transitioning into full-blown startup season. Rookie drafts. Talking about the rookies coming in. It's always good to get these coaching conversations out there because it does have a big impact, right? And what we can expect going forward. A lot of it is strictly speculation like we talked about, but to get that history and some information that maybe isn't being talked about, I think it's imperative. And, 3 episodes of coaching conversations. It's been the best 3 weeks of Dan's life, but we got to move
every
on.
minute.
We got to move on. Mitch, final thoughts for the listeners. What do you got?
I don't self-promote us very often. I'm not the one out there being like, hey, Dynasty Theory, rah, rah, rah. But I will say this, it is startup season. It's rookie draft season. It is time to get everything in order. If you don't have time for it, join the Patreon. There is a $2 tier. You could come in for a month and be like, this is stupid. I'm out. It's only $2. We have team breakdowns to where we will go through your whole league. We will tell you trade partners, what to do with draft picks, how we see the draft going. We have league breakdowns to where we will break down the whole league and break down every single team. We have our tiers that have how many players are there? Probably 300 players, I would guess.
It's right around there, yeah.
We have rookie draft rankings. We have all of that stuff in different tiers, and just come and check it out. It's only $2 a month.
And
There
if
is
you
no
don't-
off season in Dynasty Theory.
And like Mitch said, if you don't enjoy it, bail after the first month. But this is going to be a JBG that sticks. A John Bauer guarantee. You'll come back for month 2.
Yep.
We know it. All right. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. For exclusive bonus content, come over to patreon.com//Dynasty Theory. Stay safe. Be kind to each other. Have a great night. Thanks, everybody.